I'm not leaving. What do you think it means? I've thought about it, and I think it's a prophecy of some kind. Where its inscriptions could either be a story or a prayer. But the drawing seems to depict a ritual, which is supposed to awaken something terrible. Somehow, there's a comet involved too. It's a sacrifice, you'd think, but you don't say anything. The images show sacrifice in conjunction with the passing of a comet. Your mysterious friend warned you about an approaching comet. His last message. Returning to the tropical forest, you are pensive and silent. What you saw in the cave left you with a deep sense of anxiety you can't seem to shake off. You've seen similar things in your nightmares. Ada must have noticed a sense of oppression that lingers on you. Do you think this cave could figure in your plan? You remember now that this was the original reason why you came to this cave, and you consider it now carefully. On reflection, you decide the cave is too risky location for any sort of ambush or attack. That's fair. What's our experience at? 118. If we want to, we get fighting up to the same level. But I don't like those guys being at the minimum. So we'll not do that. You're lying in your hut, staring at its thatched palm roof, losing yourself in thoughts about the upcoming mission and its obvious dangers. Then your thoughts turn to something else, something which you ignored to first regain consciousness on this island. How the hell did you even get here? Now you have an idea of where you are. Answer seems utterly impossible. When Serenity became lost in the fog, it had been heading towards South America. But this island is not in the Caribbean. When you saw the stars on your first night, you got a shock. At first, you could not recognize some constellation. Until that is, you knew what to look for. The constellations of the southern hemisphere. You seem to be on a Polynesian island in the middle of the Pacific. It is already astounding that you should have survived, let alone have made such a journey while unconscious. Yeah, there is something going on, funky. Cold. Your thoughts are interrupted by the entrance of Aida, whose face appears as she pulls the curtain to one side. How are you, Jake? Aida takes a few slow steps towards you and sits at your side. Sure. Vain. Honest. Honesty will get us much, much further than anything else. So I'm worried. I am too. There is silence for a few moments. Fine, you'll see. Plan is extremely perilous. You must be afraid. Reassure. I do not share certainty. You look over her face, reflected in the low light, overcast with doubt. She is becoming convinced, give no hope of success. But at least try for Fuego's sake. That poor child, brave, I wonder what they are doing. Ada's eyes dampen. Let's comfort. This sounds arrogant. They won't even notice us, and we will rescue Fuego. I really hope so, Jake. Ah, we failed. Achievement. Ada says goodnight and leaves her hut. Watch her as she leaves, and her face and her movement. You are unable to lay her fears, but she nonetheless seems to trust you. She is a strong woman, and you're quite sure to do whatever is necessary for your mission to succeed. Alright, good. The darkness of the forest, only broken by moonlight, and there are gaps in the trees. When it is, you look up, see the heavens full of stars. Far more than the northern hemisphere. Far more than in the northern hemisphere. Ada is leading the way with a determined stride. Behind you are the men who you were successful in recruiting for your mission, all following cautiously and in total silence. You come to the outcrop, which juts out of the cult's campsite, and stop to observe the situation. Everything is silent. The camp is asleep. They know the superstitious nature of the islanders. They assume they do not need fortifications or surveillance. Start walking down the narrow path that leads to the beach. The biggest of all the wood and corrugated iron buildings is in the center of the camp. You suspect that is where they are keeping Fuego and the other kidnapped villagers. You quickly reach the camp and have no problems getting close to Central Hut. However, when you get there, you see that it is guarded by a heavily built man. He has large muscles and thighs like tree trunks. Every so often, he gets up, circles the building, and sits back down again. His presence confirms their initial guess, but this is where they are keeping the prisoners. Well, considering he gets up, circles the building, sits down again, he's like a generic video game NPC. So just wait for him to go on his patrol pattern, and we can get in there. Let's see. Neutralize. Combat. Let's take them out with stealth. I like the idea of taking them out with stealth. It is like a video game with an NPC. Like, do we go the stealth combat route, the loud combat route, or the pure stealth route? So we're gonna go the stealth combat route. Minari bounces at the guard. Guard throws a punch, so Minari swerves it and ducks behind him. The guard doesn't even know where he is when Minari comes back at him with a succession of rapid shots to the back of the head. Together you drag the guard's unconscious body into his shadow and enter the building. See, okay. Totally breaking my immersion of video game. Everyone knows the average player is gonna leave the body there, because even though it's smart to put him in the shadow, everyone's just too damn lazy. At least I am anyway. Inside the building, mostly bare. There are some shelves, the walls full of objects and containers. An object that immediately strikes their attention. It looks like a syringe, but not like any syringe you have ever seen. Pick it up and hold in the light. Yes, it is really a syringe, but it has more than one needle. There's a brass mounting with 4 tiny needles arranged in a shape you recognize immediately. An injection with this instrument would certainly leave the strange marks that you saw on the backs of the heads of the sick in Zanzibar. Are you telling me the Colts did this? Bastard. You shiver involuntarily at the memory and the strange syringe in your pocket. You return to looking around. At the far end of the room, there are several camp beds but they are all empty. Then he silently attracts your attention and points to a large trapdoor on the floor. When you open it, a terrible stench hits your nostrils. Right away you recognize the sickeningly sweet and nauseous smell. It is the smell of illness and death. Take a lantern from one of the shelves and go through the trap door and down the ladder below it. Okay, so what? Amana, Taitoa, Manari, or continue together. I think we need a guard. I think Taitoa is strong. Then again, Manari is able to move around better. Chief's not in the best shape for any guard. Hard to say. Manari might be better. Because the goal is stand guard. Really, it's to fight intruders, unless they really can. It's mostly to be able to warn us. Let's do Manari then. Manari glides silently over to the door, and it gives you a signal that he is in position, and you can continue. You descend a few steps with some difficulty, find yourself in an underground room. It's at least as wide as the building, if not more. The smell is now unbearable. There are several men and women. Shining light from the lantern towards them. You see that they are the missing villagers. Many of them are covered, head to toe with sores, typical of the disease you saw in Zanzibar. So this is what the cult is doing. Infecting these people, using them as guinea pigs. But we don't have a cure for the disease. Well, we were working on it though, so who knows. Either way, how would we know that they're the missing villagers? Not like we've seen any of them. And I guess they would be dressed like them, like the other guys, but we'll just go with that. A small figure steps forward from this horrific scene. Amana lets out a muffled cry. It is Fuego. His face is not that of the excited child you used to know. He is no longer the cheap, sprightly boy you know well. He has been ravaged by the disease. The chief picks him up and takes him in his arms. Then looks at you worriedly. You touch the boy's forehead and you discover that he is feverish. Your eyes travel immediately to the back of his head. And yes, the mark is there. You look at the others. They are greatly weakened by the disease, and they will not be able to climb the ladder to escape. Promise you a return for them is to ascend the ladder with Frego. Start thinking about how you might do this. Climb out of the trapdoor, and your companion is waiting there. He had no problems. The silent stealth for the win. As you are leaving the building, you hear indistinct noise coming from the camp. It may be that they have heard you, or perhaps it is just time to change turns for the guard. You can't be certain either way. You cannot take any chances. Still carrying Fuego, you run out of the camp as fast as you can. You are running through the dense vegetation of the jungle, trying to put as much distance as possible between yourself and the camp. You cannot help thinking of the poor, diseased villagers locked underground, and that you were unable to save them. It's a shame, but we'll get him back. Gotta burn this cult. Burn him to the ground, like we did the last time. When at last get back to the village, dawn's first light is turning the sea a deep pink color. You may unlock the rescue, good. You're still holding Fuego in your arms, and he is boiling hot. He hasn't said a word since you left the cult's campsite, Ida looks at him now with growing anxiety. Feel a sharp pain in your thigh. You put your hand in your pocket and you find small, sharp shards of glass. Fringe broke during your escape. Now useless, so you throw it away. All of a sudden, Fuego starts convulsing your arms. He is having a seizure. You take him inside the hut, which by now you think of as yours, and lay him on the bed. You must try somehow bring his temperature down and stabilize him. But it'll take time, and you know that very soon the cult will already be on their way. Stabilize the boy, yes. Alright, we need to start working these skills up anyway. So we're gonna work up medicine. By 1. Yeah, we gotta stabilize him. And success. Unlock protect our children. We managed to save Scott and Fuego from the disease. Boom! We saved them both! We are the saver of children! Haha! Alright. After nearly an hour of trying, we finally succeed bringing down Fuego's temperature. Now he's sleeping calmly, but you cannot be sure whether you've done enough. Amon is at the door of the hut, watching you with serious, impassive eyes. And now it's time for the defense. Prepare to defend the village. No real way to defend ourselves from those men. We have to leave now. You agree with Aida. She tells you there's a small island, a few hours away by canoe, where you could go to hide. She says that she has proposed the idea to other villagers several times, but nobody would listen. Perhaps the current situation, in which you've inadvertently created, might convince them. Yeah, better. Escape with Aida and Fuego. Escape with Aida. Escape with all the villagers. Duh! We must convince all the villagers. You think I'm gonna not? We're not selfish. If we say either save the village or we go down ourselves. Our hero goose on the northern beach. There should be enough for everyone. Without knowing our route, it will take many days for them to find us. There is not much choice. Now, you do the talking? Or was Speechcraft? Speechcraft's good, right? Speechcraft's good. We're gonna do the talking. We already tried multiple times. It didn't work, so it's our turn. Listen, everyone. The Ratau are on their way to attack the village. This time, they are not coming to take a person, but to kill us all. Villagers gather around, listening with a mixture of incredulity and fear. They do not have magical powers. They do have weapons and terrible poisons. They're using those kidnapped men to test their poisons, and when they die, they throw their bodies on a fire. We've found those who are still alive, imprisoned underground. They will not be alive for very much longer. Ida confirms what you were saying. You and Aida are getting ready to escape. You must prepare to leave as quickly and as easily as possible. You are able to organize an orderly evacuation. The villagers are following you silently through the dense jungle. You have gone far, though. Before you see directly ahead... Oh, you have not gone far. Oh, before you see directly ahead, a company of cultists armed with rifles. The rifles are already loaded and aimed straight at you. Uh-oh. Ada quickly grabs your hand and pulls you into the covered area of even denser vegetation. The people of the village are not so lucky. You see them many fall to the ground under the barrage of rifle shots. You do not even have time to think. Some of the cultists are already running through the clouds, gunpowder smoke, looking for you. Come on, we have to hide. Yes, gunpowder smoke, screaming and people running. Someone approaches slowly. Fuego seems to be completely recovered. All three of you set off running as fast as you can. So we're gonna kill the villagers out anyway? Come on. Lame. Ada leads, pulling you through the vegetation, holding your hand ever more tightly and not looking back. You change directions several times. You do not slow for even a moment. Despite nearly falling several times, having your skin ripped to shreds by thorns and sharp branches, Fuego, despite his recent sickness, fares much better than you. A cliff suddenly opens before you. Ada pulls you closer, guides you through the narrow space between the cliff face and the trees until you come to a small cave and crawl inside. You would have never suspected the existence of this large hole in the rock, and it should be almost impossible to find. Again, you feel a strong sense of guilt, like a knot in your stomach. Images of the massacre flash through your mind. You cannot help but think that it is all your fault. Alright. Well, this is gonna place to end it. I don't like that they basically just killed off all the villagers. Like, come on. It's a little lame, but gotta do what you gotta do. So, thank you guys so much for watching. If you like this and want to see more, be sure to like and subscribe and hit that bell button so that you can catch up with all my latest uploads. And I will see you the next episode.